The monitoring system is down. Right now, at Kilauea volcano, one of the most active volcanoes on the entire planet. And scientists, the people whose entire job is to watch this volcano every single second, are right now working with incomplete data. Before episode 45. Let that land for a moment. We just watched episode 44 fire lava fountains 300 meters into the sky, nearly 1,000 feet of liquid fire shooting upward for 8.5 hours straight, tephra raining down over communities, sulfur dioxide choking the air over populated areas. And now, before the next episode even begins, the early warning system that scientists depend on to tell them what is coming is compromised. And guys, when I found out about this, I have to say, I had to sit with it for a moment. Because this is not a small technical glitch. This is not a minor inconvenience. This is a volcano that has been erupting in powerful episodes, one after another, since late 2024. A volcano that has shown it can escalate without much warning. A volcano sitting above communities of real people who rely on scientists to tell them when to get out. And right now, those scientists are flying partially blind. Let me take you through exactly what happened, what systems went down, what that actually means for the people on the ground, and what history tells us about what happens when monitoring fails at exactly the wrong moment. Because further into this video, I'm going to show you something from the historical record that makes this situation far more serious than it might sound on the surface. So let's start with what we know. The Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, HVO, operates one of the most sophisticated volcanic monitoring networks in the world. We're talking about seismometers, GPS ground deformation sensors, tilt meters, gas sensors measuring SO2 output in real time, webcams, infrasound monitors, thermal cameras. All of these systems feed data continuously back to scientists at HVO. And that continuous data stream is what allows them to do their job, to watch for the signs that a new eruptive episode is building, to issue warnings, to give communities time to prepare. Now, here is what has happened. Due to a combination of federal funding cuts affecting USGS operations and infrastructure disruptions on the Big Island, multiple monitoring stations in HVO's network have gone offline or are operating at reduced capacity. This is not speculation. USGS HVO scientists have publicly acknowledged gaps in their monitoring capability. Seismic stations that should be feeding real-time data, silent. GPS sensors that track the critical ground inflation that precedes eruptions, compromised. And guys, these are not backup systems. These are primary instruments. These are the eyes and ears of the people responsible for protecting communities on the Big Island. And right now, some of those eyes are closed. Now let's talk about the people, because this is the part that stays with me. The communities near Kilauea's summit, Volcano Village, Pahala, residents across the Puna district on the Lower East Rift Zone. These people have built their lives with one understanding, that HVO is watching, that if something serious is building, scientists will see it coming, scientists will call it, and the alert system will give them time. That's the contract. That's the trust. And right now, that trust is being tested. Because if episode 45 begins to build beneath the surface, and the GPS network that tracks ground inflation is not fully operational, scientists may not see the inflation signal as clearly or as early as they normally would. If the seismic network has gaps, the precise location and depth of earthquake swarms, which tell scientists where magma is moving, becomes harder to determine. And if the tilt meters that detect the very first subtle ground movements before an eruption are not all online, the warning window shrinks. Not to zero. HVO still has some instruments operating. Some data is still coming in. But in volcanic monitoring, partial data is not the same as full data. And partial warning is not the same as full warning. One resident I came across, speaking to local Hawaii media, said something that stuck with me. She said, "We trust the scientists completely, but we also know this volcano doesn't wait for anyone." And she's right. Kilauea does not wait. Before we go any deeper into what this monitoring gap actually means scientifically, can you do me a favor? If this is giving you information you are not finding anywhere else right now, give this video a like and a hype. Share it with someone who needs to know what is happening in Hawaii right now. Leave me a comment below. Tell me, does it concern you that monitoring is down before episode 45? It genuinely helps the channel and it costs you nothing at all. All right, let's get into the science. Because to understand why losing monitoring stations at this specific moment is so dangerous, you need to understand how scientists actually predict eruptive episodes at Kilauea, and it is more fragile than most people realize. So here's how the system works under normal conditions. Between eruptive episodes, the Kilauea summit goes into what HVO calls the recharge phase. Magma from deep in the mantle moves upward into the shallow summit reservoir. As that magma accumulates, it inflates the ground above it. Think of it like slowly inflating a balloon buried underground. The surface above it rises, sometimes by millimeters, sometimes by centimeters, and GPS sensors positioned precisely across the caldera detect that rise in real time. That inflation signal is one of the most reliable precursors scientists have. It tells them the reservoir is filling. An episode may be coming. Simultaneously, as magma moves and the reservoir pressurizes, the surrounding rock responds with small earthquakes, a seismic swarm, usually shallow, usually concentrated beneath the caldera. Scientists watch the rate of that seismicity, the depth distribution, the moment tensor solutions, which tell them the orientation of the stress being released. All of that together, inflation plus seismicity plus gas output, gives HVO a picture of what is building underground. And in this current eruption series, that picture has been remarkably consistent. Inflation builds, seismicity increases, SO2 output rises. Episode begins. Fountaining peaks. Deflation occurs rapidly as magma exits. Then recharge begins again. That cycle, that predictable rhythm, is what has allowed HVO to issue timely warnings before each episode in this series. Now remove key pieces of that monitoring network. Suddenly, the inflation signal is incomplete. The seismic picture has gaps, and the rhythm that scientists have been reading becomes harder to read. Imagine trying to read a sentence with every third word missing. You can still get the general meaning, but the precision is gone. And in volcanic monitoring, precision is everything. Because the difference between a 6-hour warning and a 2-hour warning, when you have communities downwind of a volcano that can fountain 300 meters, is enormous. Now, here is the part of this story that history makes deeply uncomfortable. So I did a little research, and what I found in the historical record, I have to say, it changes how you look at this situation completely. In 1980, Mount St. Helens, Washington State, scientists were monitoring the volcano as it showed increasing signs of unrest. Steam explosions, ground deformation, a growing bulge on the north flank inflating at nearly 2 meters per day. The monitoring network was doing its job. And then, on the morning of May 18th, a magnitude 5.1 earthquake triggered the largest landslide in recorded history, and within seconds, the lateral blast. The pyroclastic surge, 57 people killed, including volcanologist David Johnston, who was at a monitoring station just 9 kilometers from the crater. His last transmission, Mayday, Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it. Now, that eruption happened with monitoring in place, with scientists watching, with data coming in, and it still happened faster than anyone could fully respond to. Now, imagine that scenario with compromised monitoring, with gaps in the seismic network, with GPS data coming in late or not at all. I am not saying Kilauea is about to produce a lateral blast like St. Helens. These are different volcanic systems, different geological contexts. Kilauea's current activity, while dramatic, is of a different eruptive style. But the principle is universal. Compromised monitoring at an active volcano increases risk, full stop. And the historical record is full of cases where inadequate monitoring contributed to tragedy. Nevado del Ruiz, Colombia, 1985. A moderate eruption melted the volcano's ice cap. Lahars, volcanic mudflows, traveled down river valleys, buried the town of Armero. Over 23,000 people killed. The monitoring network at Nevado del Ruiz was inadequate. Scientists had warned of the risk. The warnings were not acted upon with sufficient urgency, and the town had almost no warning when the Lahars arrived. Soufriere Hills, Montserrat, 1997. An eruption that scientists were monitoring, but the volcano's behavior shifted faster than the monitoring network fully captured. 19 people died when they returned to an exclusion zone that the volcano then explosively overran. The historical pattern is clear. Volcanic systems are dangerous. Monitoring systems save lives. And gaps in monitoring at active volcanoes have contributed to some of the deadliest volcanic disasters in modern history. This is not alarmism. This is the documented record, and it is directly relevant to what is happening at Kilauea right now. Now, let's talk about the specific funding and infrastructure context, because this monitoring gap did not happen by accident. USGS, the United States Geological Survey, operates HVO. And USGS has been subject to significant federal budget pressures and workforce reductions in 2025. Multiple reports from within the scientific community have raised concern about the impact of these cuts on volcano monitoring capacity across the United States, not just in Hawaii. In Alaska, where some of the most active and aviation dangerous volcanoes in the world sit along the Aleutian chain. In the Cascades, where Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, and the Cascadia system are monitored, and in Hawaii, where Kilauea is erupting right now. Scientists within the USGS system have spoken, carefully and professionally, about their concerns. The American Geophysical Union and other scientific bodies have publicly warned that cuts to monitoring infrastructure increase risk to public safety. And guys, this is not a political statement. This is a scientific one. Volcanoes do not care about budget cycles. Magma does not pause for funding reviews. And the communities living near Kilauea deserve a fully operational monitoring network, not because it's convenient, but because their safety depends on it. So what is HVO actually doing right now with what they have? Because I want to be fair and accurate here. HVO scientists are not sitting idle. They are resourceful, they are experienced, and they are working with every instrument that is still operational. Field teams are being deployed more frequently to compensate for gaps in remote sensing. Scientists are physically going to the crater rim, taking visual observations, collecting gas measurements manually where remote sensors are down, cross-referencing data from the stations that are still online to fill gaps where possible. And HVO is maintaining communication with Hawaii County Civil Defense so that if conditions change rapidly, the alert and evacuation system can still be activated. But guys, field teams cannot be everywhere simultaneously. Manual gas measurements cannot match the real-time resolution of a fully operational sensor network. And physical presence at a crater rim during an escalating eruption has its own dangers. This is not a sustainable substitute for functional monitoring infrastructure. It is a workaround, a professional, skilled, dedicated workaround by scientists doing their absolute best, but a workaround nonetheless. So what should we be watching for as episode 45 approaches? First, any HVO advisory updates. HVO publishes daily and update-based reports. If they note significant changes in the available data, accelerating ground inflation, increasing seismicity, rising SO2. Those reports are the first signal. Second, the eruption onset itself. In previous episodes of this series, the gap between detectable precursors and eruption onset has been relatively short, sometimes hours, sometimes less. With a compromised network, that window could be even shorter before communities receive official notification. Third, the character of episode 45 when it begins. If fountain heights exceed episode 44's 300 meters, if the episode duration extends beyond 8.5 hours, that would indicate the magma supply is intensifying, not stabilizing. And with compromised monitoring, scientists will be working harder to characterize that intensity in real time. Fourth, community alerts from Hawaii County Civil Defense. Sign up for their alert system if you are on the Big Island. Do not wait for a YouTube video to tell you something is happening. Have a go bag ready. Know your evacuation routes. That is not panic. That is preparation. And preparation is what saves lives when monitoring systems are not at full capacity. So guys, let's be very clear about what this situation is. A highly active volcano in the middle of an ongoing eruptive series. Episode 44 just produced some of the most powerful fountaining of this entire cycle. Episode 45 is building. And the monitoring network that scientists rely on to give communities warning is operating with gaps due to funding cuts and infrastructure disruptions at the worst possible moment. This is not catastrophe. This is not imminent, uncontrolled disaster. HVO is still watching, still working, still the best volcanic monitoring team in the United States. But they are doing it with fewer instruments than they should have. And the people living near Kilauea, the people who wake up every morning knowing that mountain is alive, deserve better than that. I will stay on this story. If HVO issues new advisories, you will know. If monitoring systems come back online, you will know. If episode 45 begins and the data tells us something significant, you will hear it here first. Check the end screen for my videos on the full episode 44 story and on what is happening at other volcanic systems around the Pacific Ring of Fire right now. Because Kilauea is not erupting in isolation, the whole ring is moving, and we are watching all of it together. If you want to support the channel, Coffee link is in the description. No brands, no promotions, just keeping this channel running so I can stay on the pulse for you. Thank you to everyone watching, everyone sharing, everyone leaving comments. You are why this exists. Stay safe, guys. Be aware. Bye-bye.